mark for you because the big question mark that we have today, Mr. Frank Duffy, and welcome everyone to the Goal to Go. I can't say it right. I certainly can't spell it, but welcome to the Goal to Go podcast with your host, Frank Duffy, and this guy. Don't be worried about the Gator stuff in the background. It's okay. we can talk SEC. But today, this guy right here is going to tell you why Vanderbilt is favored. It's the first time President Richard Nixon was in office. That's the last time they have been favored. And we're going to talk about the big win. I guess it's not a big win, but it keeps them alive against South Carolina at home and LSU. And Frank, LSU, are they healthy for the first time all year? And what does that mean going forward? Welcome to your show, sir.
Yep. Well, hey, thank you guys for tuning in. Our third Goal to Go show. Everything all about LSU football. And again, you're right, Brendan. It was a survive and advance game against South Carolina. When you can hold Lenora Sellers to 16 rushes and he only has 20 yards, that's a big deal. And that's why I think our defense is going to be pretty good tomorrow against Diego Pavia. Because again, if we're playing a fundamentally sound defense and keeping our lanes, it's going to keep him from doing those scrambles and making the plays a little bit longer than what they should, which is where he is his most effective. It's amazing the numbers. LSU started out as a favorite when the season first started, and now Vanderbilt is up to a 2.5 point favorite, which I love because instead of being the hunted, we now get to be the hunter.
Which is where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Vanderbilt, like you said, I think is actually technically the Carter years, the late 70s, the last time that Vanderbilt was a favorite in an SEC game. And look, we've had our issues with Vanderbilt in the past. During the dark days of the Curly Hallman years, 91 and 92, we lost back-to-back games, home and home with Vanderbilt. So, but this is a different animal. They always say defenses travel, defenses win championships, and our defense is playing championship-style football. But what's important is our offense is finally healthy.
Yeah.
Garrett Nussmeier finally looks like he's comfortable back there with his oblique, his abdominal issue. I watched him all game last night. I was in attendance. I got to actually go down on the field with my good friend Lance Smith, All-American tackle from LSU when I was in school back in the early 80s. So we got to go down. I got to watch Garrett in warm-ups before the game, literally, 30 feet, 40 feet from him, watching him throw balls. Watch every snap of it, and he looks comfortable finally. He did miss a few of the throws behind people, underthrowing them, but it is a marked improvement over what I saw in the game against Ole Miss. We also have Aaron Anderson back at wide receiver. It's a probable. I'm pretty sure he's going to go. And the only thing is Mubenga, our offensive guard, he is also a probable. I think he'll play. Big problem on defense. We are losing Whit Weeks. He's got an ankle injury, questionable. But, if they could tape it up, if he can make it, the kid's got a heart, he's got a motor, he'll be out there as well. But our defense, I think, is what's going to be the important part in this game. If we can stop Diego Pavia and that Vanderbilt offense, which we've been able to do all year, we've stifled every offense really that we've played, with the exception of Ole Miss, and it was only because our offense was so stagnant that we gave Lane 30 more offensive downs. Well, you can't hold back his offense if they have 30 more cracks at it than what your team has. But the key is if we can get our offense, which again finally healthy. Look, we're moving the ball. We shot ourselves in the foot a couple of times way down in Gamecock territory, where there'd have been another 14 points on the board. I think if we can get to 24, I think that's all that's going to take to win this ball game. I think our defense can shut Vanderbilt down into the high teens or low 20s, and that's going to be critical. It's amazing how the excitement that's going to be there. But, you got to remember, I remember when Dave Bartu came on a couple of weeks ago on Rob's show, he said that, there's tracking statistics. The 11 a.m. start in the SEC is horrible for home teams.
It is.
And
if you've been on the field or close to the field during one of those games, when you're a team that I didn't mean to interrupt you, Frank, but when you're a team that's used to playing big time football,
Yep.
even the fan base has a hard time getting up for the game. People come in the first quarter, it's like
Yep.
halfway full. Everyone's meandering in. Everyone's
Yep.
had a little bit too much of that Bloody Mary in the
Yep.
morning. And
Well, and
speaking of
it's funny.
which,
It's funny you should mention that because Brian Kelly in his presser said, "Don't forget, boys, this ain't a bourbon game; it's a bloody game. We need to have you up.
yeah,
Everybody's making the trip up to
you
Nash
get a little
Vegas.
tick to you, a little anger,
Get off Broadway at
a little
least
bit
by
of
2
horseradish
o'clock."
in there.
That's right, right? So he even mentioned that. But you're right. So the home crowd's a little bit subdued. Vanderbilt always
Always.
has had a subdued crowd, even with their
But
resurgence.
they're used to playing at that time slot.
Well, they are. The cranes aren't working that early that in the morning on Saturdays. The cranes and the orange cones that are all over
Different
Vanderbilt
SEC.
Stadium.
It's a different SEC event.
It is.
It really is different. It
It
feels
is.
different when you're there.
Yeah. So I think if we have an early start with the early game, 11 o'clock Central Time, I think if LSU's defense comes out like they've been playing, and the offense at least is productive, they move the ball. The big thing is you can't have all those 3-and-outs. You can't turn the ball over like we did against South Carolina on the 1-yard line through another interception that was on the 2-yard line.
Mm-mm.
Can't do that. Not on the road, right?
No.
Look, Vanderbilt's a good enough team, but I think between the fact that they're now wearing this mindset of being a favorite, something they have not had that psychological effect, as an intangible. I think that is going to come to play. And when the game kicks off, just like they felt it when Alabama rolled in, when LSU rolls in again, you know, when you get punched in the mouth, all that rah rah goes right out. I do think we're now at the right point. We're peaking. I think the South Carolina game. Look, South Carolina was a tough opponent. They always have been a tough opponent for us. The game last year came down to a missed field goal. That was a big win, getting over that hurdle. I think we just have to do 3-1 in our next 4 games. We've got Vandy this week on the road, A&M, which might be the college game day hosting show. If A&M comes in undefeated and we only have the 1 loss,
Even if they don't.
Yep, you more than
Because
likely.
it's two teams in the SEC with 1 loss.
Correct. And if we win this week again, you're talking top 10 teams. I think they'll be in Baton Rouge, which I think we're going to have a great shot at beating A&M. We always have great success against A&M. And again, when you've got a defense, which we have not had the last couple of years, started to get better last year, but when you've got a defense like LSU has, you can win tight ball games. And we were not doing that before. And look, we had a shot against Ole Miss. We stopped that on 4th down with a minute and 47 seconds later. Even our offense, which was sputtering oil. I think Nuss was at his most physical worst. We could have gone down there and even pull that game out. So I like our chances tomorrow. I would tell people that are betting, don't take the 2.5. Take the money line, save the juice. It's a $1.15 on the plus side of the money line, which is, I think, a gift. But I think you're going to see the LSU team that we thought the offense would be, now that we've got everybody back on offense with the exception of a couple of players. And Aaron Anderson, I can't stress this enough, how important his return to the offense is. He is that crucial 3rd down guy across the middle that's going to get you 10 when you're at 3rd and 7. Trez Green, who I actually turned to my buddy Lance Smith at the kickoff of last week's game and said, I think he's going to have a great game. Had something like 7 or 8 catches, over 110 yards of offense, 2 touchdowns. He was the kid that caught the game winner against Clemson, the first game of the year. He is a stud. He is going to be a star in the SEC this year and next year before he turns pro. He's unstoppable. He's a 6'6" tight end with great hands and that can block. So I do think LSU goes into Nashville. I think we take care of business tomorrow. I think it's going to be a slow start for Vanderbilt. I think LSU comes out early. And if we can get about a 10, 14-point lead, our defense, I think, can keep them at bay.
Yeah, well, I think this is you touched on something very important we talk about a lot in the SEC, which is defense wins games. They get you through the times that you are not able to put a lot of points on the board or you're not healthy. Florida and teams like Florida loses those closer games at the end, and then you see that in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And I think what I like about LSU's chances right now is they've hung around through the harder times, and that sort of bonds you as a team. I think
Sure.
people underestimate that. We saw that with, Florida Gator basketball team last year, after the drama with potentially coach and all the allegations, but they sort of circled the wagons, came back, and it strengthened them during the
And
rest
won
of
a
the season
natty.
and won a natty. I think teams like LSU know how to win that. They have all that. So you have to worry about an LSU if you are A&M or if you are Ole Miss, because they peak at the end of the season. That's what you want.
Yeah. Well, I think we're perfectly positioned right now. Like I said, we're finally healthy on offense. That open date before the South Carolina game, that 2 weeks between being in Vaught Hemingway and then coming back to Tiger Stadium last week did a world of good. Nussmeier hardly was on the field, though he was doing some things. He was supposed to be doing a lot that week leading up to South Carolina. But from what I heard from my friends that are down there in the program, he was at a full practice schedule last week. He's only going to be better this week. So there's no more excuses on the offensive side of the ball. We're either moving the ball and we're putting up points, and we're not shooting ourselves in the foot. You got to clean up that stuff from South Carolina. You can't turn the ball over inside the 5-yard line twice. If that wouldn't have been South Carolina, if that would have been Texas A&M or an Alabama that's coming up on our schedule, we'd have lost that ball game. South Carolina, we were able to weather that, win the game, but it was because our defense, like I said, they held Lenore Sellers in check for 20 yards of rushing on 16 carries. He killed us the year before. Before he went out with an injury in the second quarter, I think the kid had 150 some odd yards of rushing. So and look, and that's Diego Pavia as well. He does a lot with his legs. He's not really the runner that I think
I got a
Lenore
feeling
Sellers is.
I got a feeling Diego Pavia is on his downturn of his career here. I really do. I don't like what's happening with him personally. I don't like his mentor, and I just don't. I think people are kind of onto him a little bit. I think with a lot of tape on him.
Yeah,
I really think LSU wins this game.
I do too, and I think
Handedly.
I think he ran his mouth. I do too. I think he ran his mouth before the Alabama game, and what's the old saying? His mouth was writing checks, his ass couldn't
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah.
That's what I got. And look, again, Alabama and LSU. There's a lot of similarities I see to the teams this year.
Yeah.
Alabama's defense after that Florida State game has played really well, really good football. And look, they held a Missouri team that was moving the ball up and down. I watched that whole game, and that was actually Alabama beat them worse than what the final score was. Missouri had that late touchdown, and they were kind of driving at the end. But make no mistake, Alabama's defense, I think, was by far the better of the team. But you're going to have that same feel of LSU coming in just like Alabama did. And look, at the end of the day, Vanderbilt's got to play on both sides of the ball. And where I think their defense has a slight edge on our offense, I think our defense is much better than their offense. And I think even the intangibles of the special teams, LSU special teams, we're playing very good football right now. Our punter should have been the MVP of the Clemson game, and he punted extremely well last week. So I think if your defense is playing well and you have special teams that can flip the field and take points, I hope Brian Kelly realized that, unlike going for it a couple times in the Clemson game, take your 3 points, get off if you can take points, because with a defense like this, and by the way, this is not something new. I'm not breaking any new principles of football. Your defense, and you get points on every trip down or every trip that you can, you're going to win a football game. And I think that's what's going to put us ahead in Vanderbilt. And like I think you're right. I think we not only win, I think we win convincingly. So that's what I'm saying. Don't take the 2.5. Take the money line.
You've heard it from Mr. Frank Duffy. Frank, I just want to bring in briefly Kevin Skarbinski. We're right after this show. We are going to do an episode of Scarbo Knows with this gentleman right here. So stay tuned. In about
What's
5
up?
minutes after we end here, we'll set up for the new studio. We'll have Kevin come in. He does an awesome podcast. Please stay tuned to the Sidelines.live network. Kevin, what are we talking about today?
It's the third Saturday in October. What do you think we're talking about? Alabama and Tennessee.
Smoke them if you got them.
That's right. It's a cigar game. You know what that means, Frank. Nothing else matters as much to a lot of Alabama fans as Tennessee and vice versa.
And there's nothing funnier than watching a freshman try to smoke a cigar for the first time in the winning locker room.
There's nothing funnier than seeing a cloud of cigar smoke rise up in the stadium, whether it's in Neyland Stadium in Knoxville or Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa.
Well, I got a feeling y'all won't be carting off the goalposts like they did a couple of years ago. I think Alabama wins this ball game. I tell you what, though, 8.5 is a lot of points. But I think Alabama wins this game. I think Alabama is playing, in my opinion, after Ole Miss loses to Georgia, and when we beat Texas A&M next week, I think Alabama, shockingly, after all the panic that happened in the first week of the season, I think when the great pumpkin arrives in a pumpkin patch, no offense, Phil Fulmer, I think you're going to see Alabama will have the clearest shot to not only get to Atlanta, but I think they'll have the best shot of getting into the college playoff.
Well, the Alabama LSU game, people have just forgotten.
Yeah.
That game could be huge.
That could be the whole deal right there. Hey, you got a quick pick on this this weird money line that we're discussing today where Vandy's up picked by 2?
Well, I wasn't there in person, but of course I watched every second of Alabama Vanderbilt, and LSU's defense is better than Alabama's defense. And so if they can turn Pavia over the way Alabama did, and that's a different game. If they don't turn him over twice in the red zone, who knows how it turns out. But I just really like this LSU defense. If they can generate something on offense, if they can have some consistency there, and I think there are yards to be gained against that Vandy defense. So I'm leaning LSU. It's a weird line to me. It's weird to see Vanderbilt favored over anyone in the SEC.
You got to go back to the Carter administration. And look, here's the thing, Scarbo. We kept our containment on Lenora Sellers last week. 16 carries, 20 yards of rushing. If we can do that to Pavia, I really like our chances. And for the first time, LSU's offense truly is healthy with Nussmeier being healthy. I think we're going to get Aaron Anderson, the former Alabama wide receiver, who is our go-to guy across the middle. I think you're going to have another big game by Trez Green. But Scarbo, you're a numbers guy. You're going to love this. Not only is the craziness of the fact that they're a 2.5-point favorite, I looked at 2 tickets on the secondary markets. They're going for $450 in the upper deck, and you even have to sit with an orange cone and a crane hanging over your head. That's the craziness of Vanderbilt football right now.
The way football was meant to be.
That's right. That's right. All right, guys, y'all have a great show. Awesome being on. Y'all tune into us next week for all things LSU. And I know Scarbo hadn't seen this much purple and gold in a long time.
Frank, tell them what you're going to do next week. What's going to happen next week?
So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to have a show that we're going to actually come on live about 3 o'clock Central Time after I have a great lunch at Roost Chris in Baton Rouge, a fantastic filet. I'll be hunting deer in that morning. I'll be doing the show from a hunting cabin for the roundtable with Sidelines with Rob Brown. And then I'm going to have some good buddies on that have been tailgating in the same spot at LSU for 25 years. We get our reputation for great food, great drink, and great times down on the bayou underneath those stately oaks and broad magnolias. And I'm going to have 2 of the best tailgate guys that you've ever seen. They're going to be on the show, and I'll be interviewing with them.
Right, there you go. I'm going to come up for one of these days. He's Frank Duffy. Not Junior. I don't know why I keep wanting to call you that, but he's Frank Duffy. This is Gold to Go. Thanks for tuning in. Frank, we'll talk to you next week. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Go Tigers.